Hey guys, Luna here with a new video, and today is a video that y'all been waiting for. It's the most asked video on the internet. Actually, no one asked for it because no one watches my videos yet, but just watch. We are going to be ranking all 9 studio albums released by Coldplay, and I know that half of my videos are about Coldplay, but just stop, okay? This will be the last one for a while, I promise. Of course, I do not need to clarify this, but I will do just in case. This is only my personal opinion, my personal list. If you have a different opinion than mine, you should definitely leave it down below so everybody can see what your own list looks like. And yeah, let's go on with number 9. I know. I gave this album a 7, but listen, I can explain. Music of the Spheres, by the time that it was released, I thought that it was a great album. I thought that it was really good. But I did one mistake. Even if I try to be as professional as possible at the time of reviewing an album, it's obvious that Coldplay has been a band that I've been following for a long time, and that kind of, had an influence on me by the time that I listened to the album. But really, the album isn't all that good. It's actually by far the worst Coldplay album that has ever been released. The problem with Music of the Spheres is basically that Coldplay tried to bring different sounds into just one album. Often this is good. I mean, Coldplay themselves have proven that this is perfectly possible with albums like Everyday Life, and you actually have a good album that you can show to the people. But in this particular album, it almost feels like they ended up doing the bare minimum in every single one of the songs, and that is really what brings the album down. The features don't do anything for this album. I mean, that track with Selena Gomez was horrible. The unnecessary interludes, this album is just not good. And even though I do enjoy some of the songs, actually most of them, at the time of putting it all together, it really doesn't achieve it, at least for me. I don't know, this album is just not good. It's clearly their worst album, and it's a shame because one would think that after Everyday Life they would stay in shape again, and that wasn't the case with this album at all. So yeah, number 9, Music of the Spheres, their worst album by far. Yeah, I know some people that love this album. I know some people that hate it. I personally, I just don't care about it. The problem with A Head Full of Dreams is that at its best, the album has some of the best pop songs that Coldplay has released, really. The Adventure of a Lifetime is a really good song. Birds is a really good song. Hint for the Weekend is a really good song, but it's the lows that make this album so bad. Just that hidden track in Army of One, that the track itself is not really that good, but that hidden track especially, I think is the worst musical passage in Coldplay's story. I fucking hate it. Everglow is so underproduced. The Chris Martin vocals are ugly as fuck in that song. There's so many things that I don't like about A Head Full of Dreams. It's almost like some alien try to come to Earth and understand what love is about and try to write a song about love. Yeah, I think that's the word, lifeless. I don't know. I think this album is really uninspired. And as I said, there's many great songs on this album, but it's the bad material here that really brings this album down to spot number 8. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this album. I think it's not a bad album, not as bad as Music of the Spheres, but I couldn't call this a good album either. It's just a mixed bag, and honestly, in number 8. I was sure that this was going to be the worst. Something that Music of the Spheres and A Head Full of Dreams have that this album doesn't is something to say about it. You can talk about the good parts in A Head Full of Dreams. You can talk about the good songs in Music of the Spheres, Coloratura, Higher Power. You can talk about those songs and say, okay, these ones are good. This one can make the album a little bit better. But for this album, there's just nothing. It's just so extra. This was the most naked and stripped down version of A Head Full of Dreams. The only track that sounds like it's complete is Sky Full of Stars. And even that song, it's really out of the usual from Coldplay, and not in the good sound, not in the wow, they're innovating, they're doing this new. No, it's almost like they had nothing to do with the songs. Like it happened with Something Just Like This, that song from the Chainsmokers. Well, the song that Coldplay did with Avicii sounded more like an Avicii song with a Coldplay feature. And yeah, I guess that the reason why this album is higher than the 2 that came before it, it's mainly because there's not a single track in here that I can say that is bad. And I mean that. I mean, I don't think that this album has any bad tracks in it, but they're not good either. They are not important. They are totally skippable. If this album would have never existed, it would make no difference in Coldplay's story. I mean, it would be exactly the same. If from Mylo Xyloto we jumped straight to A Head Full of Dreams, I don't think that we would notice a difference in Coldplay's sound. That is the reason why this album falls so low on this list. Also, tracks that were left off, Ghost Stories and All Your Friends. I don't know why Coldplay does this so much. I mean, they grab the best songs from an album and they just leave it away. You could have easily throw away Another's Arms, for example, the worst song on the album, and bring in All Your Friends or Ghost Stories. Way better songs and make the album at least a bit better, but they didn't. I mean, and this is not the first time that they do this, and I'm gonna talk about it later on another album, but not a bad album, but definitely not interesting at all, so number 7. I know that this is a fan favorite, and I know that many people love this album. I'm just not one of them, really. I mean, I think that this album is quite boring. Let me explain before you dislike this video. I believe that this was the point where Chris Martin was co-playing as hard as he could in a custom of Bono. I mean, I found so many similarities, and actually, this is a really important album in Coldplay's discography. This was a transition from A Rush of Blood to the Head to Viva La Vida. That's quite big, but still, that doesn't help the album to get out of this amazingly long runtime. And I know it's only an hour, like it's not really that long, but it feels like days. Why? Because the songs are so similar to each other. It's just a pack of alternative rock songs. There's no variation. Really, Fix You is the only track that is a bit different at the beginning, but then it's just another rock song. There's no variety in this album. If Coldplay has something, is that often they would try to add a little weirdo in there to add variety to an album. I mean, that's so important, not only in the sound of the songs, but also in the length of the songs. All of the songs in this album are 4 minutes or less, or a little bit more, but they keep that 4-minute runtime, and it's so boring. I mean, that's the main problem I have with this album. I mean, this album had so much potential to be so good if they would have just cut out a few tracks and work a little bit more on others, and they would have made a great album, maybe their best, but they didn't. I'm saying this, but some of the best songs that Coldplay has released are in this album. You have Speed of Sound, Talk, Twisted Logic, an underrated gem in Coldplay's discography, Fix You. There's really good songs in this album, but the problem is that all the rest of the songs are really similar to this that I just mentioned. It's just that in lower quality, and I don't know. I like this album. This is a good album. Really good album actually, but I think I can count with the palm of my hand how many times I've listened to this album from beginning to end without stopping, because it's just boring. I think that is just it. It's just boring. I don't know. Okay, this is it. This is it. This is an amazing improvement in Coldplay's sound after Viva La Vida. With this, I don't mean that this is actually better than Viva La Vida. No, that's not the case. What I mean is that Coldplay made the right step in the right direction in order to evolve into pop music. I mean, I was really excited when I heard this album, because I said, hey, Coldplay actually made it. They evolved into pop music without losing their original sound. There's so many amazing tracks on this album. Paradise, Hurts Like Heaven, Don't Let It Break Your Heart, Charlie Brown. Wait, all right, wait. That's not it. The lows on this album are just fucking horrible. That track with Rihanna, that I don't know who thought that it would be a good idea to bring together Coldplay and Rihanna. I mean, I think that is just one of the, I don't know what they were trying to do or how they were trying to do it, but they definitely failed. That track is horrible. Us Against the World is probably one of the most sugar-coated ballads Coldplay has released. I don't like so many things about this album. But the things that I like is just among Coldplay's greatest. Even if this is a mixed bag of an album, it definitely has more hit than misses. And yeah, I mean, I can accept this album for what it is. And I actually enjoy this album every once in a while, still today, 9 years after it was released. So yeah. I thought that this album was gonna go before Mylo Xyloto, but I'll listen to this album again before making this ranking, and I have to say that I enjoyed this album way more. As I said in the review, I believe that this album has nothing special to it. I believe that, of course, is an important album. It's the debut of the band, and actually the same sound that you see on this album, Coldplay has kept for over 21 years. This album has some moments that are particularly boring, but different from Mylo Xyloto, the moments, it's just seconds, it's just musical passages. Instead of Mylo Xyloto, there are entire songs who are just I'm just not fucking with them. To mention some of the songs that are in this album is basically pointless because they're all pretty much just acoustic ballads and a few rock songs here and there, for example, Yellow or Trouble. I think that the reason why this album stands out so much from the rest of the discography is basically because of the songwriting, which is on point. The bass is on point. This is one album that you can just listen to while you do something else, while you're studying. It's just so quiet, except from a few songs that are basically the problem in this album, is that some of the songs don't match with each other. For example, Yellow or Trouble, which is a shame because they're the best tracks on the album. But, what can you do? I don't think that this is one of the best albums of 2000s or one of the best albums that Coldplay has released. That would be exaggerating, but it's still a really good and melodic album. It's Coldplay's most beautiful album for sure. And I don't know, a really nice experience. I really like this album. And number 4. Oh my god, people are gonna kill me for this. Yeah. Number 3. I do know that for most of you, this is Coldplay's best album by far, but really I think that statement comes more out of looking at the track list. Now you see so many amazing songs, for example, The Scientist, Clocked, In My Place, God Put a Smile Upon Your Face, but the only thing that I can say to justify placing this album at number 3 is that spot number 1 and spot number 2 have more variety in the track list. The thing that A Rush of Blood to the Head has is that it's basically just a set of alternative rock songs with just a few quirks here and there. For example, in the track A Whisper, which is one of Coldplay's best songs, and the track Politics, which is one of my favorites as well. I believe that the album would have been a little bit better if Chris Martin focused the songwriting and especially the instrumentation of the album more towards the thing he tried to do in A Whisper and tracks like Daylight, tracks like Clocks. Rather than that, most of the songs here are ballads, and that just makes the album a little bit too sugar-coated. I don't think that that's something necessarily bad. And I think the reason why this album is so good is actually because the sound is what it is. But still, the albums that are placed higher in this list do the same thing, but in a much more accomplished way. And I stick to that, and I know you're gonna freak out when you see number 2, but I just have to stick with it. This album has some of the best songs that Coldplay has released, is one of their best projects, is a really amazing album, a great improvement from spot number 4. So I love this album, don't get me wrong, this album is amazing, but I believe that spot number 2 and spot number 1 are way better. Yeah, number 2. I do not know how people feel about this album really. I haven't read much about it, but it's just so good. I mean, I know that this is not your typical Coldplay album that, usually have one theme and one specific music genre that carries on throughout the rest of the album. Chris Martin sounds so comfortable and the instrumentation is so good. The songwriting is so diverse. I mean, I love it. Piano ballads, rock music, gospel music, urban pop music. There's so many different sounds in this album, and rather than coming off as doing the bare minimum in every single one of the songs, for example, like it happened in Music of the Spheres, it sounds like he was just seeing what he could do with this different genres, and the result is amazing. Of course, this album has some really questionable tracks. For example, Daddy is probably one of the most boring tracks I've ever heard in my life. I'm not really a fan of the protest songs Guns because I just believe that Chris Martin tried to say so much but actually said nothing at all. But the best songs on this album, Orphan is a really good song, Arabesque is one of the most amazing Coldplay songs ever, Champion of the World, Broken, Cry Cry Cry. Many people find that song annoying, I don't at all. I believe that this is what really Coldplay should have carried on with. I mean, I don't know why they decided to go for only pop music again. I appreciate the fact that this album was released. I really love it. I enjoy it a lot. I think listening to Coldplay in such an effortless attempt to just make some new music and try some new sounds. It was amazing. I personally love it, and I believe that is their most entertaining album. You cannot change my mind, okay? Bear with me, listen to the album again, and then you can come shit on me. But like, still, I love this album. I love it. I think that when talking about Coldplay, you really cannot go with other album to place at your number one spot. I mean, this album was the point where Coldplay was at its best, not only in terms of songwriting and performance, but also the production. Every single thing sounds so good on this album. All these new sounds they brought to the table sound perfect. Perfect, more perfect than ever. More perfect than now that they have all of the experience. In this album, the mixing, the production was perfect. Although they have said that this was not an actual concept album, I think it's pretty much obvious that the album was built around these themes of guerrillas and wars, the times of the French Revolution, and I think it's amazing. Some of the most beautiful songs are here too. Rain of Love, Death and All of His Friends, Strawberry Swing, which is my favorite, and the most amazing Coldplay song there is to be is on this album. Viva La Vida, Violet Hill, Cemeteries of London. I mean, there's so many good tracks on this album, 42. The best track list on a Coldplay album, you can find it on this one. That is the reason why this album is my number one pick, but still, this is probably the album that wasted the most the potential it had. Coldplay released this album with an EP called The Prospect March, a title track, Live in Technicolor 2, The Gold Rush that wasn't in the actual album was released as a single around that time too. Now My Feet Won't Touch the Ground, Glasses of Water, Rainy Day. All of these songs could have easily made the perfect Coldplay album. It's undeniable. I mean, I think that in this album they managed to bring together both rock and pop music and make something amazing, and I love it. I think it's their best album and one of the best albums released into 2000, so yeah. Coldplay is one of my favorite bands. Many people think that I'm not saying this seriously, but I am. I mean, the band for me is really special, not really because of the albums, because as you can see, I'm not really crazy about them, but because of the songs and because of the videos and because the band as a whole, the brand as a whole, it means a lot to me. So often when I review or look back at their albums, I look back with a little bit of nostalgia and I tend to exaggerate the ratings or something like that. In this list, I think that I was really honest with my opinion, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. That would really help me a lot. If you have your own list, you can place it down below in the comments and I'll make sure to check it out and give you my opinion on your list. So give it a try. I hope to see you soon with a new video. I already have a review on that Ed Sheeran album, Equal. You'll see it. I think I'm gonna upload it tomorrow or maybe in a few days. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And I guess I see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.